Let's take you to another big story that we're monitoring today. Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille is facing tough questions in Parliament on how she oversees South African tourism. The Tourism Portfolio Committee is currently hearing submissions by de Lille and the dissolved board. Now, this follows her latest decision to dissolve the South African Tourism Board after it took a decision to suspend the CEO, Nombulelo Guliwe. Let's listen in.
Another vacancy now. And I had already submitted 6 names to the Department for Security Clearance, and the department came back with 4. Then that Friday, I think it must have been the 4th, I then gazetted, dissolved this board and gazetted the interim board because the process was already in place. That is part of your second question, Honourable Ishmael.
I'm very tempted, Chair, to bring in the Deputy Chair. It's a question, but anyway, I'll reach that later. Minister, just a follow-up. What was the DBSA's advice with regard to the Ngubane report? Just a follow-up on that one, because I want to understand it a bit better. If you could make it available or talk us through it.
Yes, I can certainly provide the committee with a copy of the advice from DPSA, basically confirming that for any action against the CEO, in terms of the Tourism Act, it is the minister that appoint and dismiss, and that the board do need my concurrence. They did not go into the substance of the matter. They just confirmed the legal powers that I have as the minister. But I can make that available to the Portfolio Committee. The response from DPSA, Honourable Member.
Thank you, Minister. That brings me back to the point. If you knew there was irregularities and all that issues, why did you, as the minister, then not take action? But anyway, it's linked up to my next question. Have you, Minister, ever attempted to block the board's attempt to discipline the CEO? Because why do you appear to have repeatedly ignored serious and credible accusations against the CEO while basically harshly, pursuing the members of the SAT board? That's why on the face of it, Minister, it seems that you are intent on protecting the CEO. It's giving the reflection out there from any attempts by the board to act against her, which they need to do something as a governance structure as well, to be able to fix things. So have you ever done that?
Honourable Ishmael, I'm glad you call it a perception. And let me say, I do respect your opinion. And we're all entitled to our opinions, but we're not entitled to our own facts. I have seen this perception being generated outside in the media that I'm trying to protect the CEO. That's why I even said I'm so happy to come to the Portfolio Committee, because I knew, Chairperson, that here I was going to be given an opportunity to put evidence and facts before you. So that is a perception, that is somebody's opinion. They are entitled to your opinion. They almost created a situation to say to the minister, you damned if you do, and you damned if you don't. That is what has happened out there. And so I am happy today to share the facts at my disposal that I have with the committee. And to destroy that perception that I have actually protected the CEO, when I just explained to you now, the whole process went to my colleague to seek advice, came back on the 27th. Is that protecting? What does protecting really mean? In terms of the law, how do I protect the CEO?
Okay, Minister, now I'm asking questions that are related to the dissolved board and its predecessors. So, Minister, less than a year ago, you stood before the public and expressed full confidence in this dissolved board now, whom you personally selected for their competence and experience. So what specific failures of this board, which were not apparent to you then, justify their complete dissolution now? Because if it's really based on just one irregular meeting, which I know it's procedure and so forth, but I want to understand your input from there. Because I think it's the first board that I'm seeing, and I think in the last term, We've seen the first dissolution of the board, which I think was appropriate, but to think that right now we actually had people that were really come from the, tourism background, and I think we're just picking up the pieces to steer the tourism sector to the, to where we wanted to go.
There you go. Thank you.
I proceed.
In terms of the Tourism Act, the board, in the exercise of its power, the board must always be guided by the principle of legality, which is part of the rule of law as set out in Section 1C of our Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, and also one of the founding provisions of the Constitution. And if you ask me the question as to why I've dissolved the board, in the exercise of the powers, that the board must always be guided by legality as part of the rule of law in the Constitution. And if, like I see that the board have said in the newspapers that the board members plan to challenge my decision, then maybe, Honourable Member, the court will bring finality to the board's interpretation of the Tourism Act. That will be tested vis-a-vis the legal advice that I have received. That's really how I want to answer that one, Honourable Ishmael.
Thank you, Minister. Now, it's just leading up to my next question. Now, given your apparent interest in due process, which I think we all agree with, why have you twice dissolved the SAD board via a media statement first, rather than by notice in the Gazette as required by the Tourism Act? Because you dissolved the first board, then only gazetted after appointing the interim SAD members. So, really, on that same note of process, why did you choose not to appoint a deputy chairperson of the board in September last year in violation of the provisions of the Tourism Act? It appears, Minister, that you are extremely keen to enforce regulation when it comes to the board. But when it concerns you or Ms. Guliwe, however, you seem to have no desire to meet the requirements of the Tourism Act or to enforce any consequences for possible violations of the PFMA. I'm bringing this all together because it's coming back to the requirements of the Tourism Act. So there are loopholes that I'm seeing here, Minister, and that's what I want you to respond to.
Honourable Ishmael, that will be the last question that Minister will be interacting with. Then we are going to break for lunch.
Food. Yes, Honourable Chairperson, let me deal with the announcement versus gazetting. I made the announcement and it was gazetted on the Friday. It takes effect when it is gazetted. And in both processes, both the debacle of the Tottenham Hotspur's board, I dissolve and then I, at the same time, gazette. And it takes effect once it is gazetted. There's nothing wrong with this, especially with the Tottenham one where there was a lot of public interest. I'm accountable to the public. I'm accountable to Parliament. Then on the issue of Ms. Guliwe, I think, honourable members, I know there's still a lot of questions going to come about her and around her and whatever. I can answer the questions in terms of my oversight role over SAT. But things that she did in her personal capacity, I hope you don't expect me to answer for her. Maybe if you one day want to call her, it is entirely up to you. Let me answer in terms of the deputy chair, why I've not appointed a deputy chair. When I had released the previous chair and deputy chair of their positions, they opt to resign. I didn't fire them, I didn't dismiss them. I just removed them from their positions. And again, members of parliament, the question and the reasons why that led us to that has not been answered. It is being denied. And it's being denied because the honourable members or the two people have decided to go to court. And that is their legal right, and I respect their legal right. But in terms of the amounts that I've mentioned, I received those from what the CFO has paid out or was in the process of paying out. I can't make up a thumbs-up figure of 900,000. And then today people claim that they've never claimed and they received nothing. I can bring the invoices that I received from the CFO of SAT regarding the expenditure. I did call a board meeting and I raised the issue of the expenditure with the board, led by the two previous people. And I can give the committee the recording, because in the recording, the response from the chairperson was that they have got 5 million rand, which is correct, but the 5 million rand is meant for the total budget of the board. In that 5 million rand, only 1.44 million has been allocated to board fees. So again, there are some dispute around figures here on Parliament. We're all under oath. I can repeat what I've said inside or outside, but I can bring you the invoices, honourable members, that I received from the SAT CFO. So, on the deputy chair, you know, it's almost as if we are dealing with angels here, you know, holier than thou. That board was so divided into factions. I can remember I discussed it with one member of parliament. And I said to myself that the only one that I've noticed that could maybe be a good person to appoint as the chairperson was this professor, because he's from UWC, he runs the Faculty of Risk and Governance, and he knows the PMFA. And just let him try and clean up and try and find some solutions to this based on his experience. I appointed him. And then decided, thereafter board members resigned, some board members resigned, and I then decided that I'm not going to appoint a deputy chair. And I also don't, Honourable Ishmael, know the reasons why Professor Davis resigned, but I can give you the actual letter, Chairperson, that he wrote to me and the reasons that he put into that. So then, that is why I didn't appoint a deputy chair.
Chair, on a point of clarity, please, because we're going far out and the minister hasn't actually zoomed into the reply of my question. I won't take much time.
No, you'll wait for me to give you the go-ahead.
Sure.
Chairperson here. Minister, Honourable Ishmael.
All right, live visuals there from Parliament, where the Portfolio Committee on Tourism is hearing from both Minister Patricia de Lille and the dissolved board. This, of course, following the dissolution of the board 2 weeks ago. Board member Lawson Naidu was among the first to speak, speaking quite firmly a bit earlier, saying they were not procedurally dissolved and stating that they did not go beyond their purview or overreach into the powers of the minister, where they among themselves, as they've been accused, appointed an acting chair after the chair stepped down. Now, This is, of course, among the many allegations or charges that led to the dissolution of that board, where the minister stated that they convened a meeting where there was a wrong resolution, but also chose to appoint an acting position, one of their own, one of the board members, to fulfill the functions of the previous board chair, which she says only she would be entitled to do. Well, they're quickly about to adjourn for a break, as you've heard there. Very heated session where portfolio members have not held back, given the severity of those allegations, even allegations of the minister possibly protecting the suspended CEO, something that the minister has, of course, vehemently denied.